we're still getting caught up on some of the videos and some of the progress on this car. So a couple of videos ago, you heard it run. It runs. It sounds really, really good. We just have to finish up a few things, the power steering line and the other fender for one, then we can get the hood on and it'll look like a complete car. The other thing is we have to finish the dash install with the Dakota Digital gauges, get that thrown in there, everything hooked up and set, working proper. We got a couple more parts coming from it. Chances are it's probably gonna leave before they get here, but who knows? If they get here soon enough, we might be able to actually put them on. We have a dash pad coming for it, and some vents and just some odds and ends stuff. Chris did get, if you missed it before, he did get his brand new RS taillight lenses in. We have new housings coming for the back because they were a little, well, they're old. They're 1969. So this looks killer. Another thing we have to do, he did get the reverse light, so we have to mark and cut the hole for the reverse light. It goes in the tail pan. We'll get that finished up, taken care of. And like I said, it's kind of down to the details here. I mean, I know the dash and the column isn't necessarily a detail. It needs to be done, but it's just finishing touches, kind of. The overall build on the car is pretty much done. It's just a lot of fine tuning and, again, finishing touches. So we did, if you can see here, this car sits extremely nice. We did jack the back end up. It's got coilovers on all four corners. We did adjust the back end up because it was just too low. It was actually sitting on the lift when it came down. Now, we won't be able to completely fine tune that. Of course, I said this before, but these wheels are just rollers. Chris is still picking out and getting exactly what he wants for wheels. He actually has the tires. He bought them before the mini tubs even went in. He knew exactly what tire he wanted on the back of this thing. So that's good. These would be good rollers, but once he gets his wheels and tires that he's going to run on this car, he'll have to adjust ride height and change it to a front end, actually a four-wheel alignment, because you can adjust the back of this thing to tracking and all of that, pinion angle. Once we get the rest of the weight of the car, and most of it's there, but once the rest of the weight of the car gets on there, it's going to have to be readjusted. But for right now, we're roughly adjusted. I think that's a killer stance. Obviously, it would be a lot nicer with the wider tire, maybe a little bit bigger diameter tire. But overall, it's looking killer. Now on to the Dakota Digital gauge install. If you saw the previous video, we did get a brand new carrier here, and it's awesome. It's got all the correct edging, the chrome edging. It's brand new, it's mint, it's perfect. That's really nice. So and our Dakota Digital gauges are amazing too. So let's get moving on and get those gauge pods in this carrier and get this all prepped to go in the car. So the first thing we need to do is they supply some foam tape, and you just put 2-inch pieces on three of the sides, on the side and on the top on each one of these openings for that pod to go in, and it keeps it nice and tight and keeps it from rattling. On the left pod here gets the speedometer, and that's what we're working on here. We have the wire plugged in. Here's the interconnect harness, plugs in. And then this actually is there's a buzzer, so a warning buzzer, I suppose, and there are chimes, and that gets plugged in also. We're going to run the wires through that opening, drop the pod down in there. From the back side here, we're going to start our 2 supplied 1.5-inch screws with nylon shoulder washers. Here you can see the wires sticking through this opening here. And we'll go ahead and snug this up, pulling that gauge pod back into its spot, into that foam tape. So there's our speedometer installed. Now we're going to move over to our tachometer. And the interconnect harness is kind of a Y here. We're going to route the other long end through this opening. We'll plug it into the back of the tach and then do the same thing. Drop this down in there, and we'll use the shorter 1-inch long screws and nylon shoulder washers to attach that. And with that wire plugged in, the gauge dropped in, we'll go ahead and tighten these 2 screws up. We'll attach the main harness to the interconnect harness, and once that's attached, we're ready to go back in with our gauge cluster. We have to do a couple more things, but normally you'd be ready to go back in. Now we're going to move on to our console. This is a used console. This is going to be temporary until Chris gets finishes off the interior later, but he already had this, so we're going to go ahead and use it. These gauges are really nice. They look like factory again, just Dakota Digital's version. So we do have a bezel for it too, and that's the first step after you disassemble the factory console, is slip this on. Make sure these little tabs go into these little slots. Where are they? Somewhere right there. So make sure those tabs go into those slots, and once they go in, we're going to take the supplied black screws here and run them in and attach that bezel to the gauge. So we got that installed now. Now that's one complete unit here. Be careful when you're tightening stuff like that up. Some of it's new aftermarket stuff, some of it's old original stuff. You know, it's from 1969, so be careful not to over torque it and break anything. Now we're ready to drop this whole assembly down into the console. Fits it right in there. Not quite in the spot. There we go. Drop it down in there, and we'll flip it upside down. We're going to use these 4 washers and these 4 thumb screws to tighten all that up. And with all that snugged up, again, watch not to over torque it and crack anything, but we're now installed. The only thing left to do is right there. We'll plug up our harness, and this is ready to go back in the car. It's very, very simple so far. Alright, so we're inside here, and here's the control box for the Dakota Digital system. And pretty much it has harnesses that plug into this box and go out to their product. Everything from the car. So right here would be your turn signal indicators and high beam light. There was a light strip under the gauge cluster here, and then one on this side also. So pretty much we have to cut these wires and transfer them over and hook them up in the proper spot. Everything's labeled, so everything needs to come from there, be transferred into this box. This box actually then processes everything and sends it out to the gauges. You won't have these lights under the gauge pods anymore. The gauge pod actually covers that area. All that is actually, well, let's just look at the gauge here real quick. Sitting right up top here. So your original gauge cluster wouldn't have come down quite this far, and they would have a strip here with some clear lenses. But now all that is internal in the gauges. So it's got these little you can see, yeah, I think you can see that on either side, these little windows that when you turn it on, everything comes up in those little screens. So turn signal indicators, high beam indicator, all that kind of thing will come up right in there. So with that being said, I'm probably not going to go through a step by step, because it's we'll just have to put, you know, battery voltage to it. I did unbolt the ignition switch. This is the electrical part from the column, so we can actually manually move that. There's a rod that comes down on the column. This bolts to the back side of the column, and we can hook the battery up, make power in here. We might even just go ahead and throw that new column loosely in here. It's a lot easier to put the dash insert in before the column goes in. If not, you really gotta kind of pry it, and it's brand new, and I don't want to do that. So if we lay the column in here, hook this stuff up, then we can actually operate, test and see exactly which one is which. So left turn, right turn, high beam indicator, all that kind of stuff, and then get it wired from here to the box. pretty self-explanatory, but I don't want to bore you with all those details. So we'll just get all that hooked up and get that cluster put in here. Again, it will hold our Vintage Air switch panel here for the HVAC system now. And get rid of our zip tie. And once we get that in there in the column, this interior will look way more finished off. All right, we're getting this remanufactured tilt wheel all prepped, ready to go in the car. And I was actually incorrect. It does come with your electrical part of your ignition switch. It does not, however, come with the key and tumbler. And it doesn't come with, which is kind of odd. This thing was not cheap, and it's completely restored, but it does not come with your four-way knob. It does come with a tilt wheel knob that screws in. It comes separate, and it does not come with your turn signal indicator switch, or rod rather. So kind of odd, and it also doesn't come with this bracket that mounts it to the bottom of the dash. Fortunately, we do have his old column still here, so we'll rob what we need to off of it. We do have a new turn signal indicator. We'll have to pick up a four-way knob, no big deal. But let's get this prepped, and we can get this in the car and start hooking up all those many wires we got hooked up. So we're rolling on the install with all the Dakota Digital. We got a lot of the wiring. I'll show you that in a minute. We got some parts in. We did get our power steering pressure and return line in, and these are inverted seat. So I'm gonna check these in a minute. They just walked through the door, so hopefully we can get that done. That would be a huge step forward if we can get those lines done and get this inner fender and fender on. We also went ahead and picked up an Optima battery. We'll get that installed. We got some of our wiring done here. I just want to get that battery in there and cut everything to fit and position everything, zip tie it up nice and neat, shrink wrap everything, or heat shrink everything. Like I said, make it nice, neat, and the way it should be, with the correct battery that Chris is going to run in the car. So let me get this stuff mocked up, and we'll catch right back up with you. All right, finally we have lines that actually go into the box. You don't know how frustrating that was, but we have clearance there. We got to figure out the best routing for these, get them twisted around, get them tightened up, and get them cut to fit. We got to make some ends, and yeah, but at last we have lines. You have no idea how frustrating that was. Yeah, long story, but going back and forth, and all we really need was these two lines in the first place, and I tried to get them after the fact, and they kept giving me the runaround. So anyway, we have the lines now. Let's get it done. We'll get that battery thrown in there too, like I said, and neaten that whole corner up. And it's coming along, guys. Very soon this car will be leaving. And I say that, but it's not a negative thing. It's a good thing. Chris is anxious to have this car back. I'm anxious for him to have it back, enjoy it. But yeah, it's a good thing. Been a long time coming on this project. The car has come a tremendous ways from what it came in as, so anxious to see it finished up. We got our battery in, most of everything wired and tied back. It's looking pretty good, looking pretty neat. We have the two main top posts hooked up, and this is a dual post, so the rest of our electronics is kind of tucked away below those hoses, but it connects on these side mount. So I did get the fan relay all completely wired up, so let's go ahead and test it. We have our test light hooked to the ground, and if we ground this, once it hits temperature, it grounds internally, and it should kick the fans on. So let's try it. And sure enough, they are on. Off. Nice. I noticed this too, with everything hooked up, you know, thus far. You pop your door open, dome light pops on. Nice. We got the Camaro outside. We got it all cleaned up. That can only mean one thing. Well, Actually, it can mean a lot of things, but today it means we're headed off to Britton Hill Winery and Venue. They're having a car cruise in every night, every Wednesday night, 5 to 8 through August. Let's get there and check it out. So we're pulling up through here, and I think, even though we're early, I think we already have cars showing up. So unless he's just out cruising around, I don't know. There is the Venue right here on the left. So let's get in there and get settled down. We're back home in the garage, and what a success for the first Wednesday evening. I think they had 56 cars or so there. Scouts out here enjoying the beautiful weather. Anyway guys, thanks for stopping by. Have a good day.